This presentation is being recorded by Missoula Community Access Television as part of a media assistance grant donated to Tell Us Something by MCAT. When you walked in, you were handed an audience participation paper. Please share your "What Are the Chances" story on that sheet. Drop it in the boxes. I feel like a flight attendant. At the bar, and some of them will be selected to be read during intermission. Please silence your cell phones and other mobile devices. The Missoula community is bigger than we sometimes realize. For Tell Us Something, the Missoula community encompasses, of course, those of us who live here, and also anyone who spends any significant amount of time here. Business people, students, tourists, academics. Tonight, we welcome a group of the Missoula community from around the world. High school teachers from Lithuania, Sudan, Algeria, Panama, Slovak Republic, Greece, Sri Lanka, Guatemala, South Korea, Turkmenistan, Nigeria, Cameroon, France, Belarus, Jordan, Estonia, Mexico, Uzbekistan, and Malaysia. They visit as part of the study of the United States Institute on Secondary Education, American Studies through the lens of liberty, equality, and the American dream. They spend almost 3 weeks in Missoula and then travel to Charleston, South Carolina, where they experience American culture from an entirely different perspective than what they find here. Then they go to Washington, D.C. If you see them around town, I know you'll make them feel welcome and it's a part of our community. It is important to actively listen to one another, join together, and to support each other and share stories. This is your community and these are your stories. Thank you for your support of each other and of each other's stories. Tell Us Something believes that everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. How many of you have been here before? Yeah? Do we have any new people who've never been? All right. Thanks for coming back, and for our new friends, here's kind of a little shakedown of how the night goes. Every storyteller has 10 minutes to share their story. There are 8 storytellers. We hear from 4 of them. Then there is an intermission, and then there is audience participation, where we have a couple of volunteers read selections from the stories that you have anonymously submitted. And then we have our final 4 storytellers. We have also a timer that they can see, and I will come down and unlock that iPad for you. And I've got a timekeeper, and after 9 minutes elapses, she gives us a little gong. Marissa, can you give us a little gong, please? Sounds like this. That doesn't mean get off the stage. That means, hey, you're almost done. Don't forget, if you weren't looking at the timer, check in and let's wrap it up. That's what that means. And I think that's all I have to say. So, you came to listen. Let the listening begin. Every Tell Us Something event is focused on a theme. Tonight's theme is, what are the chances? Our first storyteller recently graduated from the University of Montana in Education and History, and then moved to London to pursue a Master's of International Relations at the London School of Economics. She is fascinated by the French language and has the ultimate dream of working for the United Nations. She is an avid, artsy, nomadic student of the world. Often people call her an old soul, but she was in fact born at a very young age. Please welcome, it's what she wrote. Please welcome Mariah Kelly.
Hi, is there a Blake Kelly in the house? Marco? So Blake is my brother, and he thinks I'm in England right now. It's his birthday, though, so I figured I had to buy him a beer because I'm a college student and I'm poor. So let's give him a 1, 2, 3, happy birthday, Blake. 1, 2, 3, happy birthday, Blake! And let's get this show on the road. Okay, so when I was 18, I was taking a road trip across country to 18 states and with a guy that I had met about 3 weeks before, and those always go well. And so I'm driving a tiny Ford Aspire 1997. It's packed to the brim, and we're about an hour past the Mississippi border, and we pull into a gas station because we're riding on E like nobody's business, and we get pulled over by an unmarked car. The sirens go on, and we turn off our car 5 feet away from the gas pump, and the guy comes up to the window, and he says, you know, you weren't really doing anything wrong. I just pulled you over because you did a wide turn. I just want to make sure that there was nothing wrong. So we said, no, everything's okay, thank you. And he sees Carl shaking. Carl is the guy. And he goes, well, you seem kind of nervous. Can I ask you to step out of the car so I can check for weapons? Carl says, yeah. And I was like, you just consented to my car being searched. So we get out of the car, and faster than I knew possible, there was 4 other giant pickup trucks who came up, and these giant Rangers got out wearing T-shirts and nothing official about them and started tearing my car apart. And I get pretty pissed because it took me a long time to pack that car, and so I'm telling him, this is unnecessary, I don't appreciate that. And even one guy pulls my one bag aside and he goes, you'd be pretty pissed if I mess with this, it's packed full of clothes. I was like, yeah, he doesn't touch it. And then, you know, out of nowhere, one of them finds this little thing, and it's in a piece of aluminum foil, and he unwraps it, and he gets it out of somewhere I don't even know where, and I don't know what it is, and I look confused, so everybody kind of looks to Carl, and I go, Carl, do you want to explain? And so he's like, oh, yeah, it's mine, but it's just a piece of candy. So I decide at this point to take the guy up on his former offer, and he ends up being the DEA, and he's like, tell me where it is, and I know there's pot in this car, and I'll let you off, and it won't be a big deal, we'll stop tearing your car apart. So I'm like, well, okay, fine, it's under the front seat, I don't know why you didn't look there, but it's there, and so he finds it, and he makes a call, and a real sheriff shows up with a real car, and a real uniform, and real handcuffs, and puts us in the back of that car, and didn't read us our Miranda rights, and goes zipping off to the jail. Now at this point I'm pissed. My car's been torn apart. Carl has lied to me about something in my car. I don't know what it is, and I have handcuffs on, it's steaming hot, the guy won't open the windows, and my seatbelt's not on, and I know my rights have been violated at this point. So we get to the jail, and he explains that we'll get out as soon as the head of the DEA comes and fills out the paperwork, and no problem, we'll be on our way. Well, a night passes, and another night passes, and the third day I finally get a phone call, and I call my brother, my sister, my other brother, my other sister, and finally the guy's like, you know, you're only supposed to have one phone call. And I go, I was supposed to get my phone call the first day, and don't you know I'm not supposed to be in here? I don't belong here. I'm crying, and he gets kind of nervous and is like, okay. And I call my dad, and my dad picks up, thankfully, and he rushes off and gets me out of jail that night. Now, I had been in the jail cell with a murderer and a meth addict, and then just a meth addict, and what happens when you get out of jail, apparently in Mississippi, is you have to leave with someone or you have to leave with your car. Well, I didn't have either of those things. But what are the chances this meth addict girl gets out the same night I do? And so, So I go, I'm with her. And this guy picks her up, whose levels of drunk I've never seen, and we get into his old beaten-down Volvo, and we take off, and she drives, luckily, to his old beaten-down double-wide trailer in the middle of nowhere. And we go in, and, you know, I'm kind of taking a breath. I'm out of jail. Carl's still in there. I'm not sure what's going on with him. I know he's in solitary confinement because I didn't have enough room. But so I sit down in this raunchy-ass couch that's just has stains, I'm not sure what on it, and I realize that I'm in another situation. I only have the clothes I came in, so I'm wearing shorts. You know, it's really hot, sticky Mississippi, and the guy offers me a 64-ounce bottle of Jägermeister, 2 pills, and starts commenting on my legs, and I say, oh, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. And so I go into the next room, and in the next room is nothing but a plasticed-off, taped-off room within the room. And there's tables in the room, and there's instruments on tables, and it smells kind of chemically. And, you know, I'd never seen Breaking Bad. I didn't know what meth was. I didn't know what the little candy was in my car. I was a good honor roll student. And so I go into the bathroom. I kind of stand there and come up with a plan and go back out and say, oh, I got to make a phone call. I go outside, and I call Carl's brother. And how unshocked he was may have been a testament to Carl at the time. But, you know, I tell him, look, this is what happened. We're in jail. Carl's in solitary confinement. I'm out. I'm at this girl's house. I'm really uncomfortable. I have no money. I haven't eaten since I've gotten in, and I feel like they're not going to listen to me in there, and I need help. And my phone battery's about to die. And so he says, okay, let me call you back. He calls me back about 2 minutes later, and he says, I have a friend coming from Louisiana. He'll be there in 6 hours. Can you stay where you are? I said, no, I can't stay where I am. So he says, okay, get out of there as soon as you can and turn off your phone. I'm going to connect you with Josh, is the guy from Louisiana, and he says, get to a place that has 2 signs that cross and tell him where you are and stay there. And so I said, okay, and I connected with Josh, and he knew the plan, and I turned my phone off. Went back in and waited for the guy to pass out, which he did, and then I hightailed it out there, and the girl came with me, and she was like, yeah, he's sketchy. I was like, no shit. So then we're walking down this dirt road, you know, mosquitoes are biting us, and then all of a sudden we hear revving in the background, and she perks up, and she kind of like looks at me, and I look at her, and she's like, he's coming for us. And I was like, what is, and so sure enough, I see in the distance a car coming, and I'm like, screw this. I jump in a ditch, and it's muddy, and there's mosquitoes all over me, and it sucks, and she jumps in the ditch with me. And this guy, same guy, different car, beautiful Mustang, goes roaring down the road with a Bud Light can out the window, screaming at the top of his lungs. And he goes by again, and I get up and I start running, and she starts running with me. We get to her house, I wait for her to pass out, and I sneak out of there. So then I walk for about an hour or two. I get to 2 signs that cross, and I stay there. And sure enough, about an hour later, a guy pulls up with a truck, and he rolls down the window, and he looks like he's showered, and his truck smells good, and I hop in without even asking his name. And he's like, are you Mariah? I was like, yeah. Are you Josh? Cool. He takes me to McDonald's, and it's the only thing that's open, and we get some food, and we make a plan to get Carl out of jail. And so we go, I get my car put back together, and in my car I find, after a little while, I'm making phone calls, you know, I'm doing a good job, and then I find a little thing that's wrapped differently, but I open it up, and there's a little piece of candy inside, and I don't know why I did it, but I popped it in my mouth. And then I carried about my day, and so I made over 80 phone calls that day. I talked to attorneys and the jail, and I got Carl out of jail, and I was there, and Josh was like, we have to go swimming, you know, you just need to go swimming. I was like, yeah, okay. So we go to the swimming hole, and it's beautiful and it's magical and the trees are stretched and I can hear music. I don't know if it's actually, but the water is so clear and it's beautiful and the colors are so bright and I just felt so good. And so he takes off. He's gone. He had just left a newborn baby. He like dropped everything, didn't even know me, and came and did this. And he's amazing. And hopefully he hears the story and contacts me so I can thank him properly. Like, I don't even know if his name's actually Josh. Like, I've never seen him again. And so he goes, and I go to the jail. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I go exactly to the nearest gas station, and I fill up my car, because that's what the whole point was, right? And so then I go to the jail cell. I get Carl out of jail, and then the guy, well, before I do that, the guy is like there, and he's like, oh, I haven't done the paperwork, and I mean, this is the DEA. He hasn't done his goddamn job, and I'm there, and I've had the hell of a time. I feel great, and I bitch him out so hard that he starts saying, oh, excuse me, ma'am, and he looks scared, and he goes and fills out the paperwork. Carl gets in the car, and we're on our way. And Carl's like, do you want me to drive? I was like, I'm not fucking driving. And and we start driving away, and I left Mississippi 15 pounds lighter with a misdemeanor for under an ounce of pot. And what I didn't realize was that they never checked in the food crate, which had about 2 pounds underneath the chocolate chip cookies.
Thanks, Mariah. Gay Iman is a mom of 5 children and 3 grandchildren. She and her husband farm in Helena, which has always been the dream for her hands and her heart. Gay was raised in the Bay Area near San Francisco and has lived in Montana, her father's home place, for over 40 years. Stories are the threads that weave her together in the fabric of grace and love. She is Nana to her grandchildren like the dog in Peter Pan. Please welcome Gay Iman.
I'd like to take you back to 1981, well, 1980 to begin. In the fall, I had returned to Missoula after a brief time away. I came back to my good friends, I came back to my church, and I needed a refuge. I came back 5 months pregnant as a single mother of a 10-year-old daughter. In that time, I was embraced by my friends. We lived in a communal house, 13 adults and 3 children. That was pretty common back then. And that's where I began the journey that I want to talk to you about. Skip forward to the last day of February in 1981. I got up with my friend Martha. She would be my future birth coach. And we went down to Old Town to have breakfast. I walked in and everything was heavy, like I felt. And so in the end, I settled for granola and strawberry yogurt. It was like eating ice cream, and I still can remember that. It made me appreciate the day. It was a beautiful day. It made me appreciate it so much, I went home and made 5 gallons of granola, and that's all I ate all day. So by 3, I was feeling kind of twingy, and I thought, too much granola. But in fact, I was in labor. So it's hard. It's hard to believe, but that's what it was. So by 5 and 6, I'm getting ready. I am planning to have the baby at home with a midwife. and Martha, the midwife's assistant, and I'm ready. My room's ready on the 3rd floor, and all my friends come. My daughter's there, the midwife, and we prepare for the night. By morning, I was in agony. I had been laboring all night, and it was a slow, hard process. Couldn't believe I was where I was, but I was. And so in that short time between morning and noon, I went through the process of pushing a watermelon made out of cement. And that was how my son came. So he was born, his head was born, and it was only a head. But it was as purple as a plum. The cord was completely wrapped around his neck twice, and he had no APGAR rate. He had no breath. So the midwife acted quickly. She clamped the cord, she cut it, and the second complication was shoulder dystocia, which means his shoulders are stuck. He doesn't have the room to rotate. And so she puts her fingers under his arm and corkscrews him out. And within minutes, she gave him her breath. And that was his beginning, with a cord that stopped his breath. So he was an especially energetic young man. He was incredible. He had more energy than most boys. And at 13 months, I married a very best friend, and we moved to Bozeman to continue our life. For 25 years we did there. His name is Shannon, and he was at 4 or 5, somewhere around there. He never slept as much as anyone else. So he got up, he made us breakfast, he climbed the cabinets, he got all the china down, he got he got the etched glasses my father gave me, and everything was laid out, and he made gourmet breakfasts. That was who he was. At 7, he sold rocks and rhubarb at the farmer's market and earned $90 in 2 months and bought himself a BMX bike. He was an ambitious young boy. And when he was 20, we met up at a camp near Plains, Montana. And he was an exceptional climber, rock climber, and we went climbing with him. That was a time when I saw my son, Shannon, for who he really was. He was an exceptional person. It was my turn to climb. I get the harness on. He's going to belay me. I get about halfway up. I think, oh, yeah, I can do this. This is okay. And then about 2/3 up, my arms are shaking, my legs are quivering. I'm like, Shannon, let me down. That's enough. Let me down. He says, Mom, you can do this. You can do this. And I realized he wasn't really going to let me down, just because I was suffering, you know. So he said, Mom, I just want you to remember that you're looking for a space as big as a dime. You're to put your toe in it and all your weight and climb up, pull yourself up. And that seemed like an impossible thing to me, but in my circumstance, I looked, and there it was. I put my toe in it, I found the hold, and I climbed up and got to the top. And as I came down, I realized how important that was for me and for Shannon. That was a very important time. After that, he got into some legal trouble, enlisted in the Army. After 6 years, 2 tours, Iraq and Afghanistan, he came home very broken. During that time, I had made fortune cookies to battle the discouragement I felt with him being so far away. I I sent them to Iraq, I sent them to Afghanistan, I sent them to friends, I sold them at farmer's market in honor of his pilgrimage years ahead before me. And he came home. He came home to Montana, to his family and friends, and tried to put his life and the pieces back together. In 2013, I got a call from his youngest brother that he had found him dead. My son, Shannon, practiced autoerotic asphyxiation. And when that cord that time cut off his breath, he had no one to give them theirs. And that was an immensely difficult time. And after 6 months later, I quit my job and I went home to the farm, trying in my own way. Sorry, Martha. Yeah, I don't know. I kept falling. So I quit my job. I went to the farm that my husband and I own, and I put my own pieces together. And in that way, I planted my potatoes in a sunburst. I planted all the rows in wavy lines like mountain streams. It was my art project to just maybe prove that I still had care and love and ambition in me. I was very proud of it. And in June, like 5 years ago, I could feel the rain coming, so I went out into the greenhouse to do some transplanting. I had all my seedlings out hardening off on the outside. It was a stormy day, little rain here and there, so I went in the greenhouse, and within minutes there was bullet-sized hail at a 45-degree angle, annihilating everything. I stood at the door with my hands over my ears, and I was in awe. I had never been a part of something so dramatic and so powerfully destructive. I went in the house to eat some lunch, and I got out my journal. After 2 pages, I had written his name, Shannon. And I said, this is not about him. But it was. I had carried this suitcase of shame and guilt and everything along those same lines. If I had just loved him better, if I had just understood him more, if I had supported him in a different way. But you know, the garden proved to me that that's not true, because I did do that with the garden, and it was still destroyed. So I came to the conclusion that love is enough. Even though our circumstances slap us at the side of the head and say, no, you're wrong, I know that love is enough. That in the moment that we love, that is enough. And that God's love is enough.
Sorry about that, Gay. Thank you for sharing your story. Originally from Wisconsin, Adam Washerback moved to Missoula to work as a wilderness ranger. For the last 11 seasons, he has spent his summers working with horses, mules, saws, and axes to maintain the trails of the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. Adam is a traditional skills educator and claims to have near surgical precision with an axe. Please welcome Adam Washerbach.
Howdy, all. So September 15th, 2018 was a big day for me. It was a day of celebration. I'd had a hard summer, and I had just signed a lease on a new place in Missoula as I was moving out of the house that my soon-to-be ex-wife and I inhabit together. I was moving on in my world and in my life. It was also a day that I was going to a wedding in Wisconsin, so I was back there. So even given my circumstance, I love weddings, celebration of love, like they do good for me. So I was really excited, moving on in my world, at a wedding in Wisconsin, visiting some friends, feeling good, feeling frisky. And thank you. And so it's 2 p.m. This island is in northern Wisconsin. I'm sorry, this wedding is in northern Wisconsin on an island. So we take a boat to it, 2 p.m. I'm playing on the beach. It's an hour before the ceremony, throwing frisbees, playing football. And the groom comes out and he says, I have an inflatable hamster ball. Does anyone want to get into it? Like, this is a no-brainer. Pick me, pick me. So what is this inflatable hamster ball? You awkwardly get inside of a deflated balloon, and as we're on an island, we fill it up with a gas-powered leaf blower, and you fill up this balloon, and you zip it shut, and then you're in a hamster ball with a finite amount of oxygen, but moving on. And so it's like, all right, what are my best stunts in a hamster ball? What can I do right now? So thing one, standard cartwheel. Thing two, step it up. Right hand first cartwheel. All right. Now what else do I have? What's in my bag of tricks? So I put my hands up on the hamster ball like this, and I think, all right, I'm going to do like a back handspring, but just a real slow one. So I just lean back. And I lean back, and my hand slips, and I fall, and I hit the ground. And it doesn't take long to talk to your body, right? And so my two hands are crossed in front of me, and I tell my body to get up. And it doesn't. And I tell my hands to move, and they don't. And I scream at them, move, and they don't. And I'm in a hamster ball on an island in northern Wisconsin, like with total loss of control of my body. I am a quadriplegic, and I say the four most real things, pointed things of my life. I say to my buddies on shore, I can't move. Don't move me. This is real. Call 911. And it's one quick, are you effing serious from a friend, and EMS is initiated. And an hour and a half later, a rescue boat comes up. I get backboarded. I get boated to an ambulance. Ambulance takes me to a small hospital. They CAT scan me. Adam, you broke 4, 5, and 6, cervical 4, 5, and 6. You're in a world of trouble right now. And we don't have anything to do. We can't do anything for you. So I get transferred to the big hospital, and I get MRI'd. Adam, if you call it good news, you didn't sever your spinal cord, but as you can guess, you're pretty buggered up here. Yeah, I know. And so what happens now? And they say, we're going to put a cadaver bone in your neck and a bracket in your neck, and we'll just see what comes in the weeks to come. Okay. I go into surgery, and I wake up in an intensive care unit, and I live in an intensive care unit, tubes coming out of me from all over. On like day 4 in that ICU, a nurse comes in, and she says, Adam, where do you live? I guess I hadn't thought about this at this point. So where do I live? I live with my mom and dad. Nurse says, what's your mom and dad's house like? Well, it's awesome. It's on 24 acres in Wisconsin. No, dear Adam. Your parents' house, is it a single level? Is it a split level? Is it a 2-story? Oh, it's a split level. I guess I realized what she just asked. She comes back about 5 minutes later and says, here's 2 pamphlets. Lifts in houses are really expensive, and these are social programs that will help you to be able to afford to get a lift in your parents' house. As my heart just drops. What about when I walk up those stairs? Buddy, you're not feeding yourself right now. Okay. So, in the time to come, in that ICU, I'll learn to feed myself, and I miss a lot more than I make it, but I try, and I do. I learn to use a television remote, which is really important. because it kept me up on Blanche from the Golden Girls' crazy antics. This is the first time in my life I had that much free time. I learned to stagger to the bathroom. I get helped, right? You know, the nurses were special. Where do I live, right? I live with my mom and dad because I don't think anyone else wants to give me a catheter every 4 hours and a suppository every other day. This is my reality. Okay, we'll see what comes back at them. Yeah, we will. Well, some more time passes, and I spend in the ICU and inpatient rehab. And when I do get discharged, I kind of stagger up my parents' stairs all by myself. We don't have a lift. We didn't have to get a lift. That's pretty special. It's kind of looking like maybe someday I can live on my own again. That's successful. So I'm doing my rehab stuff in my parents' shed, which is walking around with a neck brace, just walking, looking like a spinal patient, trying to touch my nose without looking, throwing up a beach ball, trying to catch it, doing all the things you do if for the first time since you've been 0 years old, you're trying to explain to your head how to talk to your body. And I see my dad's axe. So this is my tool. And I pick up this axe, and it's been a month, and I lift it as hard as I can with every bit of might I have, and I can't get it higher than my hip level. And so this is where, like, I'm so lucky and I'm so successful, and I know that because I'll be able to live alone again. But I can't even lift up this tool that's defined me. Wow. Okay, so wearing a neck brace, sobbing, dragging an axe around my new roommate's mom and dad's shed, and knowing that the reality is I'm so lucky. That's intense. I continue devoting my life to getting better, and I get my 2.5-month checkup with my team. I have a team, my team of neurosurgeons, right? And I'm feeling better. I'm still only limited to lifting 15 pounds. I'm not sure if I could anyways. And I asked them, I said, hey, I don't have a lot going on. Would it be okay if I spent winter in South America? And they give me this look like, you precious little guy. You know? But like, for real, what's my life right now? Kind of married, kind of divorced, kind of homeless. I live with my mom and dad. I'm a spinal patient and I'm laid off. I would like a change of scenery. So my only slightly disabled self finds themselves in South America in a month from then. And I promised the doctor I'll take my TheraBands, I'll do all my exercises that I'm supposed to do. And they had given me a post-cervical fusion list of like, this is when you're allowed to do these things. And I remember at 6 weeks I could do full loads of laundry, and at 6 months I was allowed to go ice fishing. Right, the doctor's office was in northern Wisconsin. I feel like, given those two things, one could only surmise that at the 4.5-month mark, which I found myself, high-altitude mountaineering would fall there. So there's a mountain that I was interested in climbing. My legs work real good. My mind is really determined. My hands are kind of funny. My arms are real funny. But I want to try. So I put an axe back in my hand. This is an ice axe, right? And I go slow, and I go behind my guide, and I watch sunrise from 19,000 feet of elevation in South America. And I feel good, right? So after that, I call up work, because this was a new thing for me. I said, I think I can come back, right? Like, I'm still buggered up, but I think I can come back. So we talk about that, and whatever you can do, Adam, you know, it's fine. So just 1 week ago today, I was in Alaska for work, and I was teaching a class on axes. And these people don't know me, but they had kind of heard something. They said, Adam, did you get hurt or something? Have we heard this? And I said, yeah, I broke 3 bones, but I'm doing okay. I said, right now I'm kind of funny and on a small amount of drugs, right? And that's all you need to know. And Greg, my dear friend and co-instructor of the class, he announces to the class that he's known Adam for a lot of years, and for a lot of years he thought Adam was kind of funny and on a small amount of drugs. So, me right now, how am I doing? I can live alone. I can feed myself. I don't take those things for granted. And I feel really, really lucky to be kind of funny and on a small amount of drugs.
Thanks, Adam. How's everybody doing? Shout out to the balcony. I can't see you, but I know you're up there. Raymond Ansitegui was born and raised in Montana. He is a reclamation scientist and spent a decade as a rodeo bullfighter. Yeah. His wife is a world-renowned artist that patiently deals with his cooking attempts. He loves people and the bond of storytelling that holds us all together. Please welcome Raymond Ansitegui.
Sorry for the baldness. So I'm a guy that has a super weak stomach. More of a gagger, puker kind of guy. So a couple weeks ago, as I climbed under our cabin where we live at the end of a road, and I tied a rope around the 4 legs of a deer that decided she would end her life under our cabin. Not bloated, very soft, getting a little squishy. Seemed like a great thing to bring a bear to our house. So, as I get ready to pull the rope, our cabin's low, and I don't have enough leverage. So, I tie the rope around my waist like I'm dallying on a calf, so that I can get down on my hands and knees and have leverage to get this deer out from under the house. Not pretty. So I'm down, and the first one, I get the big push, and I'm like, go, go, go. And as soon as the deer turns over, the scenty part is getting strong and in a hurry, and I don't want to throw up on myself. I'm sorry. There's only certain things you can really do. And so now I'm crawling, and I'm getting close to the end of the cabin to where I'm going to get out to open air. And all of a sudden, it is bear season. Our bears are awake where we live. I'm not sure if I'm the bait or I'm the tether, but between the two of us, one of us is going to get eaten, and the other one can't do shit about it. And so somewhere inside of me, I'm thinking, God, my wife always says, get the bear spray. Well, I should have bear spray. And at the same time, I have a little flashback, what I'm going to tell you about now, where I'm like, I don't think I want the bear spray. So I keep climbing as I think back 7 years ago to a trip with a former girlfriend. And we decide, let's get out of town. We need a break. It's the end of September. Everything in your guys' neck of the woods here is on fire. It's so smoky that the whole trip to the Big Hole Valley, you can't roll down the windows because your eyes get red and they're just burning. So we're trying to use the air conditioning to control how much air is in the room as we travel. So anyway, we get there. We find a great spot to set up a tent down by the creek. We haven't seen anyone for 2 or 3 hours, probably because they were smart enough not to be there. Anyway, so we head to town, go get in the hot springs. Awesome. Just wonderful soak. Head back, park the car, the truck, which was a company truck, about 50 feet from our tent. And so Cho, she's like, we got to get the cooler out of the back of the truck, and we should put it inside the truck. Well, the back seat's totally strewn with all of our bags and clothes and everything, so she throws it in the passenger seat. We shut the truck. Bear-proof cooler, bear-proof truck. Seems like a good idea. We lock it up. The moon's full, so there's like even as smoky as it is, there's this huge, beautiful hue everywhere. We get in the tent after a hot spring soak. It doesn't take long, and you're asleep. And I'm not asleep long, and I wake to the sound of this outside. Shit, it's a bear. Bears. So I lay there in the tent, in the sleeping bag, trying not to breathe when all I want to do is, and I can't. I'm doing the, and at some point I'm like, and not to be mean to Cho, but like waking her up is a lot like poking a grizzly bear saying, do you want to get up for lunch? So she's sleeping. I don't want to be a taco in a tent. But I just remember like my toes move at the end of my sleeping bag, which was like, shh. But to me, it sounded like someone beating a washboard with a stick, like, and I'm like, and I sit and I lay there and I don't move, and I hear it again, and it's a little farther from the tent, and I reach over and I poke her, and she's like, I'm like, hey, there's a bear outside the tent. And I could just remember with that little bit of moonlight, like seeing big eyes, and she's like, are you sure? I'm like, And so we both lay there now. And finally we hear it again, and we can hear it snap a stick, but it's a little farther away. We kind of sit up, and all this happens in very hushed whispers and a lot of finger poking. So we make the decision, fuck it, let's run to the truck. Because that's what they tell you anytime someone says, what happens when a bear's there? They never say, run to your truck. But we decide we should run to the truck. So we sit there, wait, and just sitting there still, trying not to breathe. Don't breathe. And we hear another, and then we hear splash. So it's made it to the creek, which is 10 feet? I don't know. It feels like 5 miles from where the tent is, but it was like 10 feet. So we're good. Like, it's moving away. And she's like, she looks and she's like, are you ready? And I'm like, So I put on my shoes and grab the key fob, and she's like, tie your shoes. I'm like, come on. She's like, you'll trip. And I thank her for this because I would have tripped. And so I'm tying my shoes like this, shaking, like a nut. I have the key, and she's got the bear spray. And so finally we hear one more splash and a little, and we're like, zit. And I go, well, I forget that when you hit the key fob to unlock the truck, it goes bleep, bleep, and the lights flash. So we're totally panicked, sprinting across this thing, and we hear splashing. And I know I heard it, or maybe I didn't, I don't know. But I'm sure whatever's chasing us is moving away because it's startled too by what we did. I run, jump in the truck, perfect, shut the door. I look over, Cho goes to jump in, cooler in her seat. Shit. And then I see a big step and a big jump and a lot of butt, which, I can't say bad. It was a great ass. But it's coming at me, and it's coming at me fast, and I see the bear spray in her hand. Well, as she sits and hits, bear spray goes off, shoots down her leg, covers the dashboard, and all the stuff on the front, which happens to be our swimsuits from the day, hits the windshield and comes back into my face. So Bear spray is a capillary exciter, so anytime it's there, you touch it, it makes your capillaries swell up. And for days and days, this will happen. So at this point, you know what? If this bear wants me, fine. I can't be in the car anymore. I got to get out. So I just bail out. I'm laying in the parking lot, so is she at this point. Snot and tears running down my face like I can't, I mean, this isn't pretty. And everything hurts. And I'm at this point where I don't care. If the bear wants to eat me, I'm spiced. Like, I'm hot. So we get through, and I get to the point where I can finally see again. And I learned, don't touch your face anymore, just let it sweat. And I come up, and it is gross. Like, I can't imagine what I look like. But at the point where I look across, and I can see under the truck, she didn't get eaten by a bear either. But I look, and there's 2 young bull moose standing in the creek looking at us like, what the hell are you guys doing? So at this point now, punishment, punishment, punishment for the next 3 days. And so all of you know that bear spray 1, don't put it on to protect yourself. Don't put it around your tent. But more importantly, if it does get on you, you thought it hurt the first time, wait till you take a shower, because it all finds its way somewhere else. And it reignites and makes life awesome for as long as you can stand there, and you will cry again. 2 weeks later, we think we've made it through this whole existence, and she jumps in a hot springs with her swimsuit and says, I think my ass is on fire. And I'm like, oh, it is. And she got the biggest reverse sunburn you people have ever seen. So at this point, now I've got the deer. I'm back to the deer. Remember the deer? I got the deer, and I'm dragging this thing out from under my cabin. I don't give a shit if there's a bear. I will do whatever it takes. He can eat me. He can eat the deer. But I do get it packed up, thrown in my truck, and disposed of properly. Thank you. And once again, I do have a weak stomach. Thank you.
Thanks, Raymond. Thank you to all of our storytellers so far tonight. Thank you to our American Sign Language interpreters, Bonnie Curian and Stella Woodrum. Thank you to our sponsors, Logjam Presents, The Wilma, The Good Food Store, CabinetParts.com, Missoula Broadcasting Company, Axis Physical Therapy, Missoula Federal Credit Union, Gecko Designs, Enlighten Labs, Fieldy Design, Rock and Rudy's, and Missoula Bone and Joint. When you frequent these businesses, please thank them for their support of Tell Us Something and of live storytelling in Missoula. And thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your love and your open hearts and your respect and your very presence. Without you, Tell Us Something cannot happen. A couple announcements really quick. We are excited about our new one-on-one storytelling workshops and storytelling workshops for groups. To learn more about this new service, you can visit tellussomething.org and click workshops. Cool opportunity for our younger community members. Tell Us Something is doing a summer storytelling camp at the ZAC in August 5th through the 9th. So if you've got a kid aged 12 to 17, you can go to zootownarts.org/tellussomething or call the ZAC to get them signed up for that 1 week long workshop. Let's take a break. 10-minute intermission. 10-minute intermission. Go stretch, use the restroom, get a drink, tip your bartenders, and we will see you back here in 10 minutes. That's about 8:15. I know that you're tired of hearing me talk, so I'm going to get off the stage and let my friends Lauren and Amy read you the stories that you submitted anonymously. Does that sound like a plan? All right. Lauren and Amy, oh, here they come.
Three years after my divorce, I went to a friend's first house concert. Ran into an old friend, colleague, who I hadn't seen in 10 years. His wife had passed away 7 years ago. We've been together for 2 years.
What are the chances that, as I sit in the audience, I would ever have imagined that last night encounter on Mount Sentinel feels like it's going to change the course of my life? Somewhat set in my ways, never expecting such a possibility, I feel suspended and floating above Missoula, looking at my future unfolding. The astonishing reality of the circumstances make me a believer. The greatness of humanity and the interchange of emotions, thoughts, and experience is devastatingly and distractingly beautiful. Just the notion of the possibility of love and truly caring about an individual beyond oneself is the answer to the often question, why are we here? I am blessed to be here at this very moment in Missoula, Montana.
When I was about 13, my mother and I traveled to Logan, Utah to visit a very sick great-aunt. Being freshly goth, I stood out in every way in Utah. On our way to the hospital, the driver of the car in the lane next to us was staring, slowing down and staring some more. I did the only reasonable thing. I made crazy faces. Lots of crazy faces at him. When we pulled into the hospital parking lot, he did too. My mom introduced me to her cousin. What are the chances? Pretty high when your aunt has 17 kids, apparently.
One summer in Berlin, my English buddy, Mick, asked, "You want to go to a concert?" I said, "Sure, but I don't have any money." He said, "No big deal. I will sneak you in. I'm at the back door of the Berlin concert hall." He told me the German policeman in his best Cockney accent were with the band. We got inside, and one of the roadies grabbed us and said, "If you're going to be backstage, you better help out." We agreed, so he gave us 2 chairs to put on stage in front of the band. We sat there and kept the docile German hippies from rushing the stage. I had never heard of the band before. They were the Led Zeppelin.
The horse I was riding was running away toward a barbed wire fence. He was not going to stop, so I readied myself by kicking my feet loose in the stirrups. He launched, but caught his front feet on the top strand. He somersaulted forward, and I landed, running on my feet, in front of the ranch girls walking to breakfast, to whom I doffed my hat and offered, "Good morning, girls."
I was returning with a friend from a day in the woods. We both were feeling like a beer and some food when his folks sent him a message promising both, and he invited me. Naturally, I was game, especially considering I had resisted the urge to use the bathroom outside and I would have an indoor means with toilet paper. Beer, food, and toilet paper? What are the chances I'd get all of these things free and at once when I needed them? We arrived at his folks' place and entered through the basement. I could not wait to meet his parents, literally, as my bathroom need was prairie dogging. With good fortune, I learned of a bathroom in a basement, so I told my friend I would meet everyone upstairs for a beer and food. My friend leaves, and I take immensely relieving bathroom break. Relieving for now. I was already skeptical before I flushed. It was confirmed. 30 seconds later, this toilet was clogged. Like full-blown clogged. What are the chances that this one downstairs bathroom had no plunger? Decent odds, apparently, as I considered finding a stick outside to improvise, but understood that that would be like fishing for a whale. Ultimately, I decided to bite the bullet. I went upstairs, enjoyed some lovely beer and tacos with his lovely family, and then I left. I got my beer, my food, and bathroom. What are the chances? That toilet may be still clogged to this day.
35 yards uphill, the mama grizz with 2 cubs. 5 inches, wet packed snow. 3 leaps, she is at 20 yards doing 30 miles per hour. Hits the skids and starts to slide to where she will be on me. 12 yards of existence is a dead tree lying under the snow that stops her. What are the chances?
What are the chances that I took all the chances I could take in my life and I still have chances to take?
Okay, so when I was in high school in 1983, I helped edit our school literary magazine. One of my friends, Donald, submitted an incredibly insightful story about a house of women. It was so good, we assumed he had plagiarized it, but couldn't prove it. Fast forward to 2001. In Italy on vacation, I was reading T.C. Boyle's short story collection and ran across his piece called something like The Women. Eureka! I knew where Don had gotten the story. And then, in the airport, Portland, arriving home from vacation, who did I run into after 18 years? Donald. I shit you not. I told him what I'd discovered. How could I not? And he was very embarrassed, and I felt bad for bringing it up.
Three-day, backcountry, bow hunting, blind date. I don't hunt. And I married him.
Thank you, Lauren and Amy. Welcome back, everybody. Kate Hollowa has worked in public policy in Montana for more than 20 years. She's a systems nerd, a marijuana policy consultant, and author of the novel Shaking Out the Dead. Please welcome Kate Hollowa.
Outside of Yellowstone National Park, along the Yellowstone River, at a place called Point of Rocks. October 13th, 2015, I was a year into my era of radical solitude, living in Emigrant, Montana, with my 12-year-old dog, Carmen. On this fall day, it was 70 degrees, and the sky was blue, and there were big white puffer clouds above the Absarokas. Carmen and I came there every day. Because shortly after moving to Emigrant, Carmen had injured her leg, so hiking was out. So this is what we did every day. And she would poke around at the edge of the backflow and wade in the pools that gathered there, and I would watch the bird migrations and wander around and just generally feel just privileged and blessed to live in this wild and radiant place. And the sound of the outdoors was just always wind and water. On this day, we did what we usually did, and we headed down the trail through the vines and the willows and the trees towards a beach on the river. And as we walked along, we came to realize around the same time that today, after a year, suddenly we weren't alone. Carmen's hackles went up, and she took small, tight steps, and I was singing to let whatever was there know that we were there too. And we slowed down, and Carmen stuck her nose into the brush off the trail, and I took a step past her, and I turned back and said her name, Carmen. And I turned just a quarter turned, and I was face to face with a grizzly bear. And the river water was pulling down the fur on his cheeks, and his eyes were round and brown, and I'm sure we were just face to face like that for an instant, but nonetheless, in that instant, I knew it was the demarcation point between everything that came before, and nothing's ever going to be the same. I don't know how he took me down. I just know that when I came to, I was under the bear, and I couldn't move, and past his shoulder and his front leg, I could see the yellow and red leaves and the twisted vines, and his teeth were coming in through my head, and they were sharp and hot, and I just could feel the cutting sensation, and I thought, so this is how I die. I did not leave a will. Somebody's going to find my remains. Will Carmen make it out to the River Rock Beach? Will someone find her there? So now I find out, meaning whether there's life after death. Then the bear looked up. I was still trapped under him. And then in one motion, he took a jump to the right and a curve in the direction where I knew Carmen was standing. I put my hand on my head, I stayed low, and I looked over my shoulder, and I saw his big brown ass and his slug of a tail, and I couldn't hear anything, and I started to crawl forward, and I stumbled to my feet, and I felt like I was holding my scalp together as I kind of made my way through the brush until I came out on the River Rock Beach, and everything had a strange yellow hue, and there was about a football field to the parking lot, and I start stumbling that direction, and I look over my shoulder to the right, and about 20 yards downriver, bad leg and all, Carmen comes flying out of the brush. And we make eye contact, even at that distance. We both know the task at hand. And she comes at an angle, and we get to the creeks, we stomp through, we make it to the car, and we wait 20 minutes for the ambulance. Carmen got out with a scratch on her nose. I got MRI'd, I got my head stapled, I had a ruptured duct in my face, cuts and bruises, twisted spine. And I kept telling everyone in the emergency room, I'm fine, I'm fine. Where's my dog? I'm fine. About 2 hours later, a friend showed up who I had called from the ambulance. He walked into the little curtain room, and I hadn't seen myself yet, so I said, how do I look? And he said, like you were in a bar fight in Anaconda. So the next morning I wake up and, I feel I'm fine, but I should probably be closer to civilization. So I load up Carmen and we go to stay with some friends in Helena, and I'm driving 70, 80, talking on the phone. Oh yeah, crazy, but I'm fine, I'm fine. Get to Townsend, about 30 miles outside of Helena, and you know what? I wasn't fine. The adrenaline crashed. I hadn't realized I was running on adrenaline, and my vision shrank to like I was looking through a telescope. And I started it felt like an undulation of the structure of my mind. I shouldn't be driving, I thought, but I made it. And I woke up the next morning on my friend's couch, post-concussion, altered state, otherworldly even, and I felt like all the neural networks had been torn out of my mind. It was completely empty. It was pristine. It actually felt like clarity. So I would take Carmen out for little dodders around the neighborhood, and while we walked, I felt like we were in this etheric bubble, that we were so safe, we were untouchable. And day 3, we're out on our daughter, and she's sniffing along the edge of a chain link fence, and the wind blows some leaves, and I look in the direction, and into my empty head, the words come up, the ecosystem retained me. And I felt connected. I felt connected to life in a way this outsider introvert has no recollection of ever feeling before. Day 8, I'm still at my friend's house. I figure I've got to get back, so I better see if I can feed myself. And I go into their kitchen, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make roasted vegetables. But there was no thought to follow that. And then it's like I felt it click, 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 almost like feeling the circuits of my mind reconstitute. And then it was, oh yeah, it downloaded. I know how to make roasted vegetables. Day 10, staples come out of my head, and I head back to Emigrant. I'm still kind of beat up, but I get back to our narrow 3-story house with the window that looks out over Emigrant and Chico Peaks and the Yellowstone River, and back in radical solitude and sitting at the kitchen table thinking, wait, did that even really just happen? I mean, if that happened, I'd be dead. Or Carmen would be dead. Someone would be dead. Am I a ghost and I don't realize I'm dead? And I thought about the certainty that I felt under the bear. There was no tomorrow. There was no future. I was certain, and I was wrong, which means it wasn't certainty. And suddenly, certainty just seemed like a completely fraudulent concept to me, and it kind of took ideas like trusting your heart and listening to your gut with it. It's like, you can do those things, but they're just feelings. They're not crystal balls or compasses. And then I started thinking about suicide. Not because I was going to do it, but because I realized I wasn't. And I'm someone who had carried around suicide in my hip pocket my entire adult life. It was my ace. If emotional pain ever got too bad, I would take myself out. Financial ruin, I would take myself out. Even if I were old and had some physical condition I didn't want to endure, I would take myself out. And now I knew that wasn't the case. The ecosystem retained me. It didn't seem up to me. Plus, I knew I had my head in a bear's jaw, another ½ inch, and I would have been dead, and the bear jumped off. So you could be trapped and powerless with no choices, and the bear could jump off. A couple days later, I'm out on the deck. Night, went out to see the constellations, and the wind's blowing like it does in the Paradise Valley, and I heard a voice. And the voice said, "You never have to be afraid of anything ever again." And I knew it didn't mean nothing bad was ever going to happen. It just meant you don't have to be afraid. And I thought that made sense. The way certainty turned out to be a fraud, this was just another speculation about the future that could be true and may not be true. And the next day I was driving the curves of East River Road thinking, oh no, I heard a voice last night, and I heard it again. And it said, "You never have to ask for anything ever again." And I knew it wasn't because I was going to get everything I wanted. It just meant, I don't know, it just changed my relationships to my wants and my desires. And it's hard to explain, but it was like, they were like kind of blossoms on the surface of me as opposed to things that had to be measured or fashioned into goals. So no suicide, no out, no certainty, fears, different relationships to my wants and desires. It all felt like in this time the circuits of my mind were trying to reconstitute themselves, and they couldn't come back the same in this space. And I'm sure I seemed the same to my friends, but in that most intimate part of myself I felt different. When I was 26, I had 3 dreams, and I remembered them a month after the bear. I'd always remembered them, didn't put a lot of meaning on them, but dream 1, big long stairways, I have to climb up them, and there's bears sleeping all along the way, so shh, be careful. Dream 2, I'm opening up a closet, and shh, quiet, because there's a bear sleeping up on the shelf. Dream 3, I'm sleeping in some cool spring green grass, and then all of a sudden, oh, boom, boom, there's a grizzly bear coming by, and I see his feet, and I see him walk by, and I smell the gamey smell. And at the time, the dream's materiality surprised me, and in retrospect, the accuracy did as well. But in my dream in the spring, this bear passed me by, but in the fall by the river, the bear took me to the ground. But the bear didn't take my life, and the bear didn't take my dog. But the bear took the foundation of my psyche. He changed my mind. The bear changed me.
I guess I have to introduce her too, huh? So I've never done this sitting down, so let me give this a try. Elsie Anga received her Bachelor's of Arts and Master's of Arts degrees and high school teacher's diploma in modern English letters from the University of Yaoundé 1 in Cameroon. She has been an English language teacher in Government High School, Baya Amasi, Yaoundé, Cameroon since 2006. Elsie is very keen on poetry writing, and she possesses quite a collection of original poems. She received the 2008 Anglophone Cameroon Writers Association Award for her poetry entry. Please welcome Elsie Enanga.
Hello, everyone. I want to give a special shout out to the Susi gang at the back there. I love you all. I love you, Montana. It was a cold evening in the month of May in 2014. My husband called me aside and announced that we are going to host a meeting in my home. So it's a real privilege to host that meeting. It's a church meeting. It gathers young university students all around the country in Yaoundé, Cameroon, where I live. So the next morning, I gathered pots, really large pots, gallons of water, got the place prepared, waiting for the team. Each day had a team. They had to cook for a week. So that morning, I got the place arranged, and our space where we live was hosting 3 families. It was a cramped space, 3 families living with some kind of hostility, and I have a large family. We occupy the bigger space, but sometimes the neighbor really get cross and hostile with my children playing around. So the atmosphere was tense before the arrival of these guests on the day of that meeting. So on that day, the church had already programmed. They had brought in bags of rice, gallons of oil, and there were preparations already going on for the breakfast for that morning. I could smell onion in oil, vegetable oil, and it was a nice time. Everything was going as it had been arranged previously. So I'm a teacher. I went to school. I had a meeting. I went to school, attended my meeting, and came back. I changed into my African kaba, that's what is called a flowing gown. I wore it. I joined the ladies who were cooking in the kitchen. Everything was going well. There was music. We're cooking the afternoon meal. All of a sudden, my little boy, David, ran in and said, Mama, come quickly. There's something happening in the parlor. Come, run in, come. I left the ladies there cooking. I went into the sitting room. When I got there, what I saw frightened me. I saw my child called Othniel. His tongue was hanging out of his mouth. His eyes turned out, and in a flash, I saw death. And it brought to mind a Cameroonian player who died in France in such circumstances. I really got afraid. I screamed aloud and called for help. So where we were, it's not easy having transportation. So they arranged with other members who were there. They got a bike, and they quickly transported Othniel to the hospital. I could not follow immediately, so they had to arrange for a second bike to transport me to the hospital. It took about 7 minutes for me to get to the hospital. I was only crying in my heart, praying aloud, oh God, don't let Othniel die. Don't let this child die. I'm hosting this meeting. I don't have any ill intention. I count it a privilege. I just want to serve you. I just want to be of service to my community and to the church. So I was just praying and shouting out aloud. I just was still dressed in that kaba. There was suits. We cook on open fire, so I was smelly with grease and smoke. I just got out in that same attire and I rushed to the hospital. While in the hospital, they just quickly took the boy to the emergency room, took the Othniel to the emergency room, and they were attending to him. 1 hour, 2 hours. Nobody was coming out of the room. I got confused. I was still asking God, please don't let this child die. So when at about an hour or so or two after, the doctor came and announced to me that, oh, lady, your son has a serious condition. We do not really know what is it, but we are suspecting it's meningitis. And we have to carry out a serious test. And that test has to be carried out with samples, blood samples from the spine. And if we miss it, this child is going to be crippled for the rest of his life. I felt broken. I was really worried. I didn't know what to say. So he told me that information and went back inside. They were there for another hour or two. At that time, it was almost around 8 p.m. in the night. They were still inside. They stayed there for some time after they came out with the child. It was a great relief. They carried the child, installed him in the ward, and I was there with him in those same shabby dresses, just sitting there. He could not talk. He was unconscious, and I was there with him. We're sitting down. After a while, I just saw another nurse bursting with a second child, David, and say, oh, we could not leave him. He was having a serious condition, and we did not want him to have the same crisis like the first child. They installed both of them on one bed. In our African society, sometimes the hospitals really get cramped. So the two children were on one bed. The first one, Othniel, lay on the upper side with fluids hanging, drip sets hanging from bottles from the stands around the bed. The other second child, David, who informed me about the sickness of the other one, lay on the second side. It was a terrible sight. While they brought both of them, the first one was still unconscious. He couldn't talk. The other one, he wasn't really serious, but he was hot. He had a very high temperature. So they put him on the other side of the bed. I sat there. I was questioning myself. I asked myself several questions. I asked what I'd done wrong to have two children sleeping on the bed, sick at the same time. I was just going through my mind, asking several questions. After about midnight, 1 a.m., the first child, who was seriously sick, opened his eyes and called, Mama. I was very happy. I felt so consoled. It gave me some hope that the child was alive again. I was still not very sure after they had brought him back into the world. So when he called out, I was happy. I talked with him. He was sore in the throat. He couldn't speak out loud, but he could make some signs showing life, and I was very happy. The other one was under control. He was stable. He was fine, and we were fine. So at that time, when the two children were stable, I got out, went to the bathroom, washed the same clothes I had on, squeezed them dry, and put them back on. And when I came back to that room, I had a great lesson to learn. I thought that, I'm still thinking till today, that God had a great lesson for me. He wanted me to be closer to my children, closer to my family, and to learn, to know that in adversity, even in joyful situations, there is still adversity. I felt so happy after that. We went back home with the children. Everything got settled, and today the children are doing fine. They are great. They are in school, and I thank God so much. I want to thank you for listening.
Our next storyteller is short, but not this short. Sorry, Mike. In 2006, Mike Mctee traded the busy traffic of Seattle for the quiet trout streams around Missoula. Mike is now an environmental scientist for MPG Ranch in the Bitterroot Valley. He studies the intersection between chemistry and shooting sports. Please welcome Mike Mctee.
Back when I was a high schooler, there was this day when my dad and our friend Mark loaded up the truck with a bunch of guns and some ammo. Then we went driving through the western Washington countryside, under the cedar forest, and then we found a gravel pit. So we start shooting and everything. Then about an hour or two later, it starts to drizzle rain. That's when I took my shirt off. So there's something you should probably know about me back then. I drank a lot of protein shakes. I lifted a lot of iron. My biceps were thick. My pecs, powerful. My abs were the showcase. So that's the type of guy I was back then, right? So the shirt's off, rain's coming down on my body, then I grab an assault rifle and a pistol and I start flexing my abs, showing them off. But the weird thing about this is I'm showing them off to my dad, our friend Mark. And if someone was to have seen me that day and then said, okay, that guy's going to become a scientist, they would say, no, I don't think so. That guy, he's going to be a raging gun nut. In about 10 years, I'll bet you that he's going to be wearing an American flag for a bandana. He's going to homeschool his kids. And when Barack Obama takes office, he's going to buy more guns. But it turned out having all those experiences early on, shooting the guns, actually came into play with my job right now. So I'm an environmental scientist. I work at MPG Ranch. It's just down the valley. It's really close. It's in Florence. And it's big. It's on the Sapphire side, and it runs from the Bitterroot River through grassland up into some mountains. We're not a normal ranch. We don't run cattle. Instead, we run a bunch of researchers. There's about 12 or even more researchers. There's a lot of us. And we study things ranging from what grows in the roots of plants to what elk eat. And I was lucky enough to live there for about 5 years at this house we call the Orchard House, which was set on this grassland on a slope. The house wasn't on a slope. It was level. We've got to get that straight. Then there was an orchard there. And we had this beautiful view of the Bitterroot Valley. But the thing was, there was hardly any privacy there, at least in the summer, because research technicians were going in and researchers were going out, and then we had field crews and irrigation crews. It was this hive of activity. But in the winter, all of that went away, and it was quiet. And on this one day, I was sitting at the kitchen table. All I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator, my fingers typing on the keyboard. Then I hear this car rattling up the driveway, and I couldn't quite see who it was. Then I hear it stop. The doors open, they slam shut. And the front door of the house opens, also slams shut. Then in comes Rob and Adam from Raptor View Research Institute. They work here in Missoula. And Rob, he has this golden eagle in his hands, this giant golden eagle, and he looks at me, he goes, "Hey Mike, we're understaffed today. Can you help us process this eagle?" I said, yeah, I can help. So I jump out of my chair, and he hands me this eagle, and he goes, "Okay, grab his legs like 2 drumsticks, keep his talons up high." So I do that, and I bring it in. And they caught this thing on a carcass, but it smelled clean. And I'm looking down at his talons. They could easily zip through my forearm, so I made sure not to let the thing go. And it was just huge. And Rob and Adam, they measure the bill length on this, the talon length, the eagle's wingspan. They weigh it. The last thing they do is Adam. He takes the golden eagle from me. He puts it down on the hardwood floor, very delicately. And Rob, he takes out a syringe, and with the eagle's wing open just like this, Rob sticks in that syringe into a vein, and he withdraws a tiny bit of blood. And they've been taking blood samples for quite a while now, because what they found is nearly every single golden eagle they catch has a bunch of lead flowing through its blood. So the idea is if a hunter like me goes out into the field, gets the gun, puts a lead bullet in there, chambers it, and then goes walking in the field and sees a deer or an elk, puts the rifle up, and if you're good, like if I'm good, which I usually am, shoot the thing. And once that bullet hits that animal, it's going to travel through, and little fragments of that bullet can travel away from it and be left over in that animal. And as me, if I'm the hunter, and if I leave any of that in the field, a scavenger can come in and eat those fragments of lead. You all know lead is bad, right? Does anybody in here still eat paint chips? Maybe. So yeah, stay away from lead. But the thing about this is that all the different things lead can do to us, many of those things can translate to golden eagles and other scavengers. They can get sick, they can even die. So when you consider me, I wasn't a raging gun nut at that time, but I did like guns. I had a chemistry degree at that point. I had actually held an eagle that had elevated levels of lead. I had all the pieces of the puzzle to know that what I was doing could maybe be modified. Maybe I could use non-lead ammunition. Later that fall, I go up to Blackfoot and I shoot a nice, big bull elk with a lead bullet. It's like I hadn't really learned anything with all that experience. And as my friend, he's butchering into that elk, he finds the bullet. And I weighed that bullet. 30% of it is missing. That means that it either ended up in the food that I ate, the meat that I ate, that I gave my friends and family, and or it was still left in the field, in that carcass. And I thought, what are the chances an eagle landed on that carcass? Where did it go? Because Rob and Adam, they've been catching these golden eagles for a while now, and on some of them, they put little GPS transmitters on them. Most of these things fly all the way to the Yukon and Alaska in the spring. That's far. Some go all the way to the Brooks Range. Some go within sight of the Arctic Ocean, it seems. So I'm wondering, if I leave this carcass out in the field that has lead in it, is an eagle taking my bullet to Alaska? There's something about that just struck home with me. I felt like I was letting Rob and Adam down. I was letting myself down. And then I just made the most simple switch. I just shot a different bullet, a copper one. But then I really got into it because I had that background being a gun nut and also a scientist. And where I worked, we started writing magazine articles. We started doing science. We started doing presentations, giving outreach. And a month and a half ago, I was doing outreach in Boise, Idaho, at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous. Imagine a giant conference center full of vendors. Everybody's selling tents and float tubes for fishing, and there's hunters and fishermen mingling, talking. They're drinking coffee in the morning, nursing that hangover from the night before. In the afternoon, they're drinking beer. It's loud. There's this booth, a non-lead booth that I was helping run, and it was in the back corner, so it wasn't front and center or anything like that. But we had a lure that brought everybody in. We had hawks and falcons. Nobody can walk by a falconer that has this giant bird on their hand without stopping and taking out their cell phone. Everybody was there. So as people are attracted to our booth, some would meander past the falconers and then talk to us non-lead guys. And we had these two tables set up, and it showed the different fragmentation rates of all the different bullets you can shoot, lead and non-lead. So when we started engaging people, I was overwhelmed by how many people said, "Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. I heard about this issue, heard that eagles were getting poisoned. I'm shooting non-lead, no problem." A lot of those people. But I remember a guy named Jake. He's from Austin, Texas, and he comes in, and he looked really studious. I say that because he was wearing glasses. And he hadn't heard about this issue at all, it seems, so I'm giving him the rundown, giving him the spiel, and, oh yeah, MPG Ranch, a lot of eagles have lead, and this and that. And then he nods, and he goes, "Do you have any partition bullets?" I go, "Yeah, we do right here." And a partition bullet is just a very common type of lead bullet. And I picked up this container and showed him all the little fragments that come off of that bullet. And his eyes just grow wide, and he goes, wide behind the glasses, of course. And he goes, "Wow, my dad's got to see this. He shoots these." And then we talk about Austin, Texas, and everything he's got going there. You know, conversations drift. I shake his hand, and he wanders off. A couple hours later, he comes back with his dad. And he tells his dad everything I was telling him. He picked up the partition bullet, and his dad looks at it, and he nods. And I realized he had become an advocate in a matter of a couple hours. And when I see that, I see success. And in that type of setting, when I'm shaking hands when I'm meeting people who also support this. I can feel that success. And as more and more people recognize this issue, maybe the scavengers can feel that success too.
Thank you, Mike. We have one more storyteller. And before that person comes on, I want to remind you of the Youth Storytelling Camp, Summer Camp for kiddos aged 12 to 17, August 5th through the 9th at Zootown Arts Community Center. You can call the Zach to sign up your kid. And also, the next Tell Us Something event is here at the Wilma in September. The theme is Leap of Faith. And we are taking story pitches right now. So all of you have the opportunity to come up here and do this thing. We have a workshop. And if you want to pitch your story for Leap of Faith, call 406-203-4683 or just go to tellussomething.org and click Tell a Story. Okay? All right, let's bring this home. Our next story, our last storyteller. Mike Coluccia was first introduced to improvisational comedy 5 years ago at a workshop taught by a member of the Los Angeles-based Groundlings comedy troupe. He's been hooked ever since. Performing in community theater productions and with local improv groups, Mike's professional career includes over 20 years of experience in medical sales management. Put those two things together. And he is also a former restaurateur and whitewater river guide. Please welcome Mike Coluccia.
That's what happens when you don't send in your bio to Mark. He just takes it from other things. LinkedIn. What's that?
That's what happened.
Well, my story starts on a really beautiful, cold November day in Missoula. I had a dental appointment at 2 in the afternoon. I was lucky to be temporarily underemployed, so I could sleep till noon. And I scheduled the appointment for 2 in the afternoon, and I thought, well, I'm getting a crown put on. And for those of you guys that don't know what a crown is, it's just a fake tooth that they glue on to what's left of your old tooth. Younger people out there probably don't know that yet, but you will. So I thought, it's such a beautiful day, as is my custom. I have 3 rescue dogs, and I thought, why don't I throw the dogs in the truck? I'll only be there probably 20 minutes, and I'll be out of there. I can take the dogs for a walk up into the woods. I knew I shouldn't have thought that probably, but... So I went to the dentist, got in the chair. She fit my crown on. This was the permanent. All she had to do was merely glue it on. So she put it on my tooth, and then she couldn't get it off. So she took a piece of floss and started flossing back and forth kind of and trying to pull it off. As she did this, it popped off the tooth and pinballed around in my mouth. I jumped out of the chair really quickly, didn't know what to do. She looked at me, I looked at her. She said, "Do you have the tooth?" I said, "No, do you?" And she said, "No, I don't have it. How would I have it?" So I said, "Well, what now?" She said, "Well, you're going to have to go to the ER room." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "You're going to have to get an x-ray to make sure it didn't go down into your airway." So I freaked out immediately. Then I ran into the bathroom really quickly. I said, "I'm going to get that thing before it goes all the way down." So I went in the bathroom and went, "Ah! Ah! Ah!" For like 10 minutes I went in there. I shoved my fingers so far down into my throat, like to China. And I just kept gagging, and I couldn't get it out. I couldn't get it out. So finally I just gave up after about 10 minutes. And the noise I made was, well, you heard it. So when I went to come out of the bathroom, which is next to the lobby, I took a quick look in the mirror, and I looked like this. And I didn't care. I was just like, I got this tooth. I don't know where this tooth is. So I just didn't care. I opened the door. When I opened the door and I looked out, all the people in the waiting room were sitting there, and they were horrified. They were like moving back in their chairs. It's like they saw a ghost Godzilla all rolled into one. I kind of laughed to myself a little at that point, but I had to remember what I was doing. They did not want to go, I guarantee you, to see that dentist after I came out of that bathroom, though. So I ran back to the dentist, and I said, well, what do we do now? And she said, well, you're going to have to go to the ER. If you couldn't make it come up, you'll have to go to the ER. So I got in the truck, ran out of there, just sprinted out of there, got back in the truck, drove like a crazy person to the hospital. The dogs were in the back. They were getting thrown around. I kept apologizing. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm really sorry, but there's a tooth somewhere in my body. I don't know where it is. So I was taking chances. I was cutting in front of people, going the wrong way. I didn't care. I just wanted to get there. So finally I get there, and the lady checking me in is so sweet and kind, but she's taking forever. And I'm trying to be polite and nice, but inside I'm going, hurry up, there's a tooth somewhere in my body. I'm just feeling that way. So they take me in the back, and I wait there a while, and a young resident comes out, and he said, well, we x-rayed you, and we can't find it. And I said, well, you know, I think it's still in my throat. I feel like it's still in my throat. Can you x-ray my throat? So he x-rays my throat. About 20 minutes passes. I'm hearing people talking, chatting. Hey, Joe. Hey, Bill. Cindy, come over here. He's like waving people over to the CRT screen. I'm like, what's going on? So I go over there and look, and my tooth is up in my sinus cavity. What I think happened was, it gets better. So what I think happened was, when I jumped up out of the chair, I went, and I must have snorted that tooth up into my nose. So now the resident says to me, well, we called Rocky Mountain ENT, ear, nose, and throat, and there's a guy over there, he has the right instruments. I'm like, you don't have the right instruments here? So I run out of there like a crazy person. I'm just like, and I get into the car and I'm driving crazy over to this other place because I think maybe it's still, it's going to fall down. I can get it before it falls down. So I'm trying not to swallow. I'm trying not to move my head. And I get to the ENT place, and everybody's gone for the day. But the doctor's still there. But they don't admit me right away, and I'm pacing back and forth. I'm just freaking out. I'm like, hurry up. I have a tooth in my head, please. Don't you understand, you stupid people? That was all in my head. And finally, they let me back. And the doctor came out and he said, well, I don't think it's in your sinus. I've been doing this 40 years, and I've never seen it happen. Comes back 5 minutes later. Oh, yeah, it's in your sinus. So then he tells me the options are surgery with general anesthesia, or he can stick hemostats down my nose and try and pull it out through my nose. So that's an easy choice, I think. So I get in the chair, and he numbs me up, and he sticks these things down my nose. That's not the worst part. So he says, I got it, I got it. I can hear the metal hitting that tooth when he's doing this. So he starts pulling it on it, and he's pulling on it, and it's just not happening. It's not coming out. And I'm like, how much longer is he going to do this? So he keeps pulling, and every time he pulls, my butt cheeks lift off the seat. Because it was painful. And then all of a sudden I realize he's never going to stop because this has never happened to him before. How would he know when to stop? So finally I say, enough, you're killing me here. You're going to pull my brains out through my nose. So finally he says, I'm just going to tap it. That's the only other thing we can do. Try not to swallow it. Says, you ready? I said, I'm ready. Let's do this. Taps it. I just go. Swallowed it instantly. So now he says, I say to him, I said, now what? He said, as a matter of fact, you have to go back to the ER. I'm like, oh my God, will this hell never end? So I run out of there. I don't even hear anything else he says. I just run out of there. And since I'm by home, I dump my dogs off at home. I smoke some weed. And I can actually like take a second and say, holy shit. That was a crazy 4 hours so far, and it's not over. So I go into the ER. It takes forever to get back in there. Everybody sounds like they're dying in the ER. I'm going to get pneumonia and die myself, I think. So they x-ray it, and they do find, in fact, that it was in my digestive system finally. So they get ready to check me out, and the nurse says on my way out, she said, here, take these. And she gives me like 3 or 4 of these plastic cowboy hats and some tongue depressors. And I look at her and say, what are these for? And she said, well, you have to go through your poop to make sure that it comes out. Oh, yeah, naturally, right? So I'm kind of stunned, and I walk out of there. They finally let me out of there with my cowboy hats and tongue depressors. And the last thing the nurse says on my way out is, hey, be careful that tooth doesn't bite you in the ass on the way out. So I go home with my cowboy hats, and for the next 3 days, I'm panning my poop for that tooth. And finally, on the 3rd day, and it's interesting, you can get good at anything, and I mean anything. Especially where getting your own poop on yourself is involved. You get really good at it. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So I finally find the tooth, and after a bunch of scrubbings and boiling it, I finally bring it into my dentist. And it has been in my mouth ever since. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, Lynn, can I please have the house lights? Thank you all for being here. Thank you especially to the Storytellers, Mariah Kelly, Gay Iman, Adam Washerback, Raymond Antitegui, Kate Heliva, Elise Enenga, Mike Mctee, and Mike Coluccia. Thank you all so much. We will see you in September. Have a fantastic summer.